Aloha and welcome to another episode of Truth in Movies. I'm really excited today. One, we haven't done a Truth in Movies in so long, and it's mostly because movies today suck. I'm sorry. It's just like, can't really find a good one these days. So I went back. I went back in time to find one of the best movies that I'm surprised I overlooked. If you like Goonies, if you like movies where it's a bunch of little people or kids that have a treasure map and they're looking for the most important object on Earth or in the world, or they go through many adventures, or if you like time travel, I think this is going to be the breakdown for you. I'm really excited. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. It looks like my audio's working. I did an audio check. Good to see everyone in the chat. Time Bandits. Time Bandits. We're going to be talking about pirates. We're going to talk about time travel. We're going to talk about Pastafarians over there on the side. And we're going to start right about meow. So check this out. Time Bandits is the name of this movie. And it's all about, basically, these dwarves, these midgets, and a small child that have a map that shows them all these holes in space and time. And these dwarves used to work for God. So they're sort of celestial beings, or they represent celestial beings, and they are able to travel through time, and they steal things. They just decided that they're going to be bandits throughout time. They're going to go steal interesting or valuable objects in time. And that's the premise of today's movie. Now, we start things off with a big fat picture of the spinning, wobbling, tilting, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, pear-shaped, obuloid, oblate, glob Earth. Okay, the reason I want to point this out, and the reason the movie points this out, I believe, is to show you something. It wants you to think. I'd like you to think. For all of you people who love time travel, especially time travel movies, I'm one of them. It is impossible or impossible on this. Under this academic model of our world, you cannot time travel. The odds of you being able to time travel are nearly infinitely against your favor. It's impossible, basically. Not that, there's always anomalies and exceptions, but consider this, right? In order to time travel, you have to have specific coordinates to know where you are in space and in time and where you're going in space and in time. Now, this is actually the model, okay? So this right here, this little blue marble, as they call it, is one of these little dots that's flying around, twisting around behind that gigantic ball of fire through uncharted, unknown space, constantly in a brand new place all of the time. And nobody's recording where we've been throughout all of that space, throughout all of the galaxy. There's nobody writing it down, coordinates, and saying, okay, we're here at this moment in time, and this is where we're going to be. We can project it, because no one knows where that sun, where that ball of fire is going. And therefore, you cannot travel into the past or into the future, because you need the coordinates of where you're going to be as you're spinning and wobbling and gyrating and tilting and all of these movements that are happening that make it next to impossible to, even if you could time travel, to actually do it. You would end up likely just poof in space, and you would instantly die, or maybe in the sun if you're trying to go forward in time, or maybe inside of the Earth itself. The likelihood of you landing on the surface exactly where you need to be at the point in time where you need to be is impossible if you believe in this. But if you have a different cosmology, it could be. Possibly. Now, we start things off by meeting the protagonist, which is this kid right here. Kevin, I think is his name. This is his house. He's basically Harry Potter to begin with, okay? His parents don't really like him. They don't really care for him. They're sitting on their plastic-coated furniture to try to keep it... Calix, hey, thanks for the donation, Calix. To try to keep it clean and perfect and pristine, right? Also so that they don't have to clean. They're very lazy. And they're sitting there watching this commercial. It says an infrared freezer oven complex. And they're showing you the latest and greatest in this kitchen gadgetry that can make you peel, or that can make you a meal from packet to plate in 15 and a half seconds. We're showing them this technology. This guy's barely even paying attention, just slouching way down in his chair. The mother's taking a moment from her book to watch this infomercial, while the child is over there studying ancient history. And the woman says, the Morrisons have got one that can do that in 8 seconds. So she's unimpressed even by all of this future technology, these wonders to behold. It's unimpressive to her. This is the time that we live in right now, the season of Satan. Now, the child is reading this history book. He's reading about things that are weighty and far more valuable than some stupid commercial through the telebox. He says, Dad, did you know that ancient Greek warriors had to learn 44 different ways of unarmed combat? Which is amazing. He's looking into the past, comparing this to the dad that's half asleep, the mom that's watching the television. And he says, well, at least we've got a 2-speed hedge cutter. So they're very impressed with themselves. They're very impressed with their technology and their lives that are so comfortable that they live. This is exactly what's shown to us in the movies that has been prophesied through fiction and science fiction. It says in this WALL-E meme from the movie WALL-E, WALL-E basically lives in the future, and everyone in the future looks like that. Okay? That's really, I don't need to get too much into detail over that before I get accused of shaming everyone on the planet. You should be ashamed, okay? Collectively, you should all be ashamed because you have lost yourselves entirely. With all these advances in AI, it looks like we're headed in this direction, is what it says. Now, this is what the child is studying. Ancient Greece, ancient Rome, the Spartans, and so on, and etc., and so on and so forth. And this is how they're depicted, right? At least in the movies, at least in the drawings and stuff, this is how the ancients are typically depicted. This is what they are today. This is what the warriors of today are starting to look like. Okay? We live during the season of Satan. It is a time when evil has taken over the world. We have left everything that is good and wholesome and pure, and these are the warriors of today. But they're not warriors that fight for justice and do the right thing in life. They fight for and protect a system of ticketing, of commerce. It is maritime law. It is all about collecting money or charging. Collecting a charge, charging other people, taking the charge from other people so that they are in charge, so that they literally have the power. They actually have the power. You know how He-Man pulled his sword up and says, I have the power? That means he's in charge. He has the charge. He has the power, the energy. That's what these people are trying to take away. And it's not just any branch or anything like that. It's the entire system of the world. And they're very comfortable based on their gadgetry and their technology. And that's what you're going to see. The devil in this movie, Satan, that's what he is invested in, is technology, so that he can take over the world. Now, this boy goes to sleep at night, or at least we think he's sleeping, and he has a vision, which is basically what dreams are if you pay attention. Your dreams are visions. You're being shown something otherworldly. And to many of us, those visions can be interpreted. They're messages to us. He has this message given to him of this knight that jumps over his bed and takes off through the wall into this beautiful, lush forest. And he sits up and he's like amazed. So you're left with the question, is this all going to be one of those movies where it's just a dream? Which I've always hated. It's never just a dream. Even when they show you that it's just a dream, it's not just a dream. But on the other hand, all we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. Everything is a dream. And therefore, if everything is a dream, then everything is real. Everything within the dream is just as real as a dream would be. It's all real, and it's all a dream. So he goes over to the wall. That's where the portal opened up in his bedroom, right? And he puts his hand on the wall, almost like he's in Antarctica trying to look for the edge. In my mind, that's what I would do. I don't know if I would touch it because you probably get shocked at the very least. Probably very dangerous. But he goes and puts his hand on the wall where this portal was, and he doesn't think it was a dream. He can't wait to go back to sleep the next night, or at least get back to his room so that he can investigate and see what's going on. He says to his parents, I was thinking of going to bed right now, actually. And their response is that of a consumer. You must wait for your food to go down. He says, I haven't eaten any food. Well, you must eat your food. Do you hear that? You must eat your food. Why? Why is that a command? Why is that an expectation for parents to impress that upon their children? You think that your children are just going to starve themselves to death? You think they're not going to express when they are hungry? You think they're too dumb to be able to eat when their body tells them to eat? Now there's anomalies and exceptions, as always, right? But this is just a consumer mentality. We eat and eat and eat, and we're so used to eating, even whenever the time comes in the next world where you don't have to eat, the people will still do so because they still are consumers up here. They'll be consuming you. They'll be cannibalistic because they won't know how to plant things. They won't know how to harvest from the ground. They're going to know meat is food, animals and life. I take that and I make it mine. That's consumerism. He says, you must eat your food. So they tell him to eat his food. It's a command, right? It's got nothing to do with taking care of him or anything. It's just, that's what's expected. That's what the way things are today. Now he goes to bed finally after his food has digested and whatnot. And you can see this little robot in his room comes to life, right? All by itself. It just turns on and he puts the flashlight on it. And then more strange things start to happen. Now, this is an omen of the apocalypse. Machines, robots, and technology will have a life of their own. They've already done this during the Carrington event, as we've gone over many different times. But in the future, an event much larger than the Carrington event is going to bring our electronics to life on a large scale. And many people will be shocked, figuratively and physically, by their own machinery as the machines turn on the humans. Now, his closet starts to rattle and the door opens. Now, what do you suppose might come out of that door? Do you think it was just the wind? Never. Never in a movie like this. The closets will always be portals. So you have these tiny people, midgets, dwarfs. I don't know what the right word is these days, okay? But they're little tiny humanoids, all right? They come out of the closet. And the first thing they say is, where are we? I don't know. So they've come from somewhere else into this world. This is Janus symbolism. Janus was the god of doorways. Specifically, he was the janitor god. He's the god of janitors. Why? Because he lives in the closet space of the world, which is at the center of the world in Mount Meru. It's the opening that goes down into the underworld. He's also the god of janitors because he, the blue beam, the energy that comes up out of the earth every other cycle, cleanses this world. And this is the key that he holds. This is the rod that shoots up out of Mount Meru. And you can see the beam that splits into two going one way and then the other way on his face here. I'll go and zoom into that just real quick. Now, sometimes they don't give him a beard on both sides, but that's originally how he was depicted, okay? Sometimes they make it a young face and there is no beard, and an old face, but it's this symbol. You see the symbol that's on my hat right now? It's the exact same symbol. That's the symbol for Janus. That's the cleansing god. That's the janitor god, etc., and so on and so forth. Right above the blue beam, you'll always have the crescent of the bull, or which is the apex dome, which is at the top of the firmament. Now, you'll also notice this god oftentimes associated with the white room, right? The janitor god in the white room symbolism, which is the world beyond our world, okay? I'll say that. But through the closet door, through these portals, through these openings lies Narnia, lies Wonderland, lies Neverland, lies otherworldly places that are connected to our world. Our world is actually a Neverland, a Wonderland, all by itself, every other cycle. We live during the age of water, after the flood, after the world's been flooded, and all the energy is receding constantly with slight fluctuations where it makes a return, and receding again, and receding again. And we live during a time when all of the energy is gone. But one day, the doors, the closet door to our world will open up once more. And energy will pour out. But not only energy, but otherworldly, underworld monsters will come out of the closet. Portals will open up from the surface to the underworld, which many of you know exists. I know that the underworld exists. I know it's a reality. And it used to be a reality to nearly everyone on Earth. It was the norm. It was socially acceptable to talk about the world under us, an entire region, not small cave systems where some people decided to be homeless and just live in caves. An entire world, as large as our world, if not bigger, is right under our feet. So these little guys come out and they say, well, let's look at the map. And he says it's not on the map, wherever they are. Now, symbolically, if they just came up out of Mount Meru at the center of the world, which is the center place, as some Native American tribes call it. Sometimes it's referred to as the back door. It's got many different names and epithets. But they say it's not on the map. They're lost. They don't know where they are. And they're correct. It's not on the map. The devil has gotten his hands on the real map and changed it, manipulated it, warped the shape of your world where you live to tell you and cast a spell into your mind where the boundaries are, what has been discovered and what has not been discovered, to keep you in one place, in one loop, on one little circuit in one particular area, to keep you in check, putting you in your place, quite actually and physically. Up here is where they would be, which is the North Pole, which is the entrance and the exit into this world. He says, I don't know. I think we gave them the slip, so they're running from somebody, right? All right, well, we're going to learn more about who they're running from in a moment. They hear the boy who gasps, and they all freak out, and this guy shoots his gun into the air. Now we can get a little light to take a little look at these little guys. This guy has a colander on his head. He's a Pastafarian, basically. He's wearing a pasta strainer on the top of his head. This guy's dressed like a pirate. He has a pirate hat on, right? The pirates, this guy's more like steampunk, all of these things. The piracy, I did a whole video about Pastafarianism and the spaghetti god and all of that and the reality behind it, okay, which is the spaghetti strands of plasma filaments that reach down into this world when we go through the plasma apocalypse. The Pirot are the lights, or the people from the lights, okay? You could say fires, but it's really lights. Pirot, it means literally a plural of light or a plural of fire. They're the people that hearken from and come from these places of power that emanate energy from within the earth and shoot up these beams of light straight into the air, and people follow those. And then, of course, the steampunk age, which is where the modern world's technology is just destroyed and scattered about the world. So people go on these relic hunts to go try to find today's technology in the future when they don't know how to piece these things together, and they repurpose them. There's also the monocle, which is the one eye symbolism as well for the apex dome. Now, they're all freaking out. They think that they have met God, which is who they're running away from. And they're like, oh, peace. And they put their hands up doing the Atlas pose. And then they realize it's just a kid. So they go tackle him. And they say, just tell us how to get out of here. Keep quiet and you won't get hurt. So they're lost and they're trying to get out of his room. On a small scale, his room represents the entire world, okay? There's an entrance and an exit. This is all happening. This is all of history and a quick little scene, right? There's times when they show you this on different scales. Sometimes it's a very small scale like this, and other times it's a large scale. They want to know how to get out. So he says logically, well, why don't you get out the way you came? To them, this is ridiculous. They say, don't try and be smart with me, you little creep. That's because you can't get out the way that you came in. Okay? You keep going in another direction. Once you come into this world is sealed off. Okay? Unless you enter and exit like in the same day, you're going to be stuck in this world until the next cycle. The doors do not open until the cycle completes. And then the doors above and below will open up. Also, the way you get into the Garden of Eden is not the way you're going to get out of the Garden of Eden. There's a different entrance than there is an exit. Now, he says he's found it. Now they're looking for the way out all of a sudden, right? These little guys, they're looking for a way out of his little world, which is his bedroom. And they found it, which is they're pointing at the wall. The same wall that he thought was this portal that the knight had jumped through. Let's take a look at some of these pictures on the wall. Most notably, this one. It's got a big fat circle and another circle inside of it. I call that the doom shape, which is the image that people see whenever they look up in the sky and those lights light up the firmament and they see the inverted dome at the top of the sky. They also see the figure of a man at the middle. Sometimes it's the Minotaur, sometimes it's a bull, but we're going to come to that a little later on in the movie. You can actually see where it looks like there may be lightning coming out of the middle right back there. If I zoom in a little more, you can see what looks like electricity coming from the center, right? This is the exit, okay? That's the apex dome. If you'd like to go upwards and out and into heaven or the fractal verse or the multiverse and go to other earths and other worlds and have your lifespan extended, that is the way to go. The way out. He's like, it's never done that before. So his walls never opened before. Well, during the apocalypse, our walls will open. They will bleed blood red, like in the horror movies, as the light spectrum changes color and the sky is completely red. He says, come on, push. So they start going through the wall in order to get out. These are the walls of our world as well, which is the firmament. The firmament has little weak points in it that will blow out whenever the atmosphere depressurizes. So the little guys are pushing the wall further and further, blowing this kid's mind, when all of a sudden, lightning and thunder. And immediately following this is who they're running away from, which is God, right? Or at least this movie's version of God, okay? And God shows up as a head surrounded by a mist of clouds. This has been shown to us many different times where God is represented by a floating head, just an entity, right? But those clouds represent the depressurization point. The ancient people looked up into the heavens and saw the sky god as the apex dome blew open, the firmament ripped apart, and all of these clouds encircled the depressurization point. And people looked up and saw the sky god. They saw other gods too, which is the earthly ones, the terrestrial beams of energy that shot up as beams of light and then split at the top, creating cosmic wings or hands that seem to hold up another world above, right? So they're like, come on, you got to come with us. Run, it's God, run, run. And this is exactly what others will say. When the plasma apocalypse comes and the face of God once more shows up, or the face of the sky god shows up, it's Medusa, it's all kinds of different floating head and God symbolism, okay? The people are going to say to run, all right? They're not going to know where to run, and they're not going to be successful, but they're going to try to keep safe. So they take off. He's running away from the plasma apocalypse. He runs down this corridor as this disembodied head says, return what you have stolen from me. Another concept that we see movie after movie is that humanity has stolen something from God or the gods, however you'd like to see it, and it needs to be returned to them or to him or to it or her or whatever. Return what you have stolen to me. So this head floats after them and they're all panicking and the kid has no idea why. But the little guys do. They know exactly who this is. He says, return the map. This is the map. This is one version of the map, okay? This is the version of the map that is the correct one, where they'll show you paradise at the center of the world. This is just the one that I feel is iconic. I like to use this one over and over. However, if you research the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, cartographers all throughout those times placed this circular land with these 4 rivers and a holy mountain at the middle on many of their maps, time and time and time again. They were not copying one another. People saw this. The people went there. There are, there was expeditions. There were travelers and explorers who were commissioned by royalty, sometimes by God or by popes or religious figures, to go find this place. As a matter of fact, I personally believe that this is what the age of exploration was all about, that people were looking to find their way back to the Garden of Eden, at least the nobility of the world that kept these secrets. That's what they were trying to do. It will bring you great danger, he says. Now, this is true. There's a certain element of knowledge that comes with knowing what this place is and where to go. Some people are going to figure out that this place is where I'm telling you it is, and they're going to go there immediately. They're going to say, well, let's go right now. And they're going to be burned to a crisp. It's going to be a great barbecue as the fires of God come down and consume this whole area. It's not only until after that it becomes a safe place and a paradise once more. So God knows, and God says, it's dangerous, don't go. And this floating head comes after them, right? Much like the floating head that we see in The Wizard of Oz. Oz was at the center of this map in the Wizard of Oz books and stuff like that. There was 4 different lands, 4 different quadrants, just like in the map I just showed you, except for in the book they're square instead of circular, and Oz was right in the middle. The city of Oz was right in the middle. This is where this floating head is, right there in the middle. There are floating heads. This is from The Last Starfighter. This was the bad guy. Now, sometimes the floating head of God is depicted as good. Sometimes it's depicted as evil. It all depends on your perspective. Sometimes it's green. Sometimes it's blue. But time and time again, movie after movie and television show after television show, we see the floating head of some higher power, some greater being that is either evil or good. It all depends on your perspective. Many people ask me to break this movie down, but I haven't actually watched it yet, so it's on my list. It's another Sean Connery movie. Sean Connery's in this movie too. Now, they're like trying to get away from God, so they're escaping through the wall, which is the firmament, and lo and behold, what's on the other side? Space, as it's portrayed to us. Really, in reality, space doesn't look black and dark like that, okay? But they want to pass a message to those who are paying attention, to those who are listening, so that you understand what's being done and conveyed to us at a deeper level in the movie. So the reason it's blue on the other side is because they just left the sky, the earth. That's our sky, symbolically speaking. And they're going into space. And this is how we believe space is supposed to look. In reality, when you get past this point, you'll see all kinds of colors swirling around, because there are plasma filaments that wrap around Earth in what academics calls the plasmasphere and the magnetosphere, right? So they go through this portal, and because they went up into the sky symbolically, they're going to have them drop down out of the sky. They show us where they're about to land, which is this old world looking farmhouse, and they zoom in on these geese, and there's 2 chickens right over here. Now, in a few different of our movie breakdowns, I have said, look out for the 2 chickens. Look out for chickens in general, okay? Because 1 chicken is enough, symbolically speaking. It represents the number 88, okay? It's the sound that it makes. Chet and chet. Kaka, kaka, cuckoo. However you want to pronounce it, the vowel doesn't matter, okay? It's that hard, low, guttural, 2 times in a row sound. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Cocoa. Chocolate, church, etc. Kaka. It's in way down the bottom of the throat. The 2 chickens just represent that, okay? And it's the Pillars of Hercules. And if you go beyond the Pillars of Hercules, then you are time traveling. You're going into the other world, the other version of Earth that's fantastic, and everything's larger than life. So the sky opens up, a portal opens up in the heavens. And this kid and all his little dwarf buddies fall. I feel like dwarf is worse than midget. I don't know why. Like, dwarf is like a fictitious, like, humanoid in the Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get that. That's like calling them leprechauns. You know what I mean? I'm like, how is that better than saying midget? I don't know. Anyways, I'm off topic. Anyways, the sky opens. These Nephilim, these space travelers, fractal-verse travelers is what I like to call them. They've come through the opening in the sky, which also insinuates this is an apocalyptic event. I've heard many people say apocalypse means revealing, and therefore it's all revealing in our spirit, man. And everything will be revealed to us, and the world's going to stay the same. The apocalypse is inside you. Yes, on one level, that's correct. I believe that there is a revealing spiritually, and that people, will have their minds awakened and they'll see things for how they really are. But on the other hand, I like to balance that out with the physical, real reality that we live in, where the sky itself will reveal the world beyond, that the sky will open up. That is an uncovering of this world, which makes it depressurize, right? Now the kid is like, oh my God, where am I? He's looking around. He can't believe he sees farmers walking by. He sees French people on horses going to war, smoke everywhere. He knows he's not in Kansas anymore, right? To quote the Wizard of Oz again. He says, what are we going to do here? And so he's trying to figure out why they're doing this. Why are they jumping through time or whatever? And he says, a robbery. So the whole point of these time travelers that go through the sky and land in these alternate versions of Earth, which is what I believe time travel actually is that they're going to they bounce from world to world, okay? Or from time to time. They bounce from time to time, from world to world, and they take. And they learn in the form of taking, as far as learning goes, like they're constantly learning. So they're taking information, they're taking knowledge, but they're also taking other things, like the Anunnaki story of them wanting to find shiny or shining metals that people have interpreted as gold, right? They're pirates. They're original, actual pirates. He says, we're international criminals. We do robberies. Now, the first person of note that they meet is Napoleon. Notice Napoleon is doing the hidden hand symbol, right? The hidden hand symbol means that they are related to those whose hand is at work in the world, and they are constantly manipulating the future. They're manipulating the path that you all walk and controlling the entire world's population, okay? They are the hidden hand. Napoleon himself wasn't the hidden hand or anything, but there's also a higher up that the hidden hand, as a collective of humans, reports to, and that is the plasma filaments from above that they telepathically are just in tune with, because that's the energy that they vibe with. There's a little seed of the serpent inside of these particular individuals, just as some of you have the seed of the tree of life welling up within you. And this is why you feel at odds with these families and at odds with these people. This right here is how the hidden hand was depicted when it was no longer hidden. When it wasn't hidden, it was raw. When it was hidden, it was Amun-Ra, and it disappeared, and people wondered what happened to that god. That is the god that was seen in the sky. This is Nibiru, according to the modern New Age belief system or whatever, but it is not. It is the apex dome where plasma reaches through and spreads out its tentacle fingers as it reaches down to the earth to ground itself, because it's electricity and everything is electromagnetic in nature. This is the apex dome of our world that I was referring to. That's the little cloud that shows up around the edge of it. And this is the hand of God that reaches down into this world as it's depicted across time, across cultures. Now, they put on this play to make Napoleon laugh because they really just want to rob Napoleon. And Napoleon gets the protagonist over to the side. He says, "You stick with these boys, you have a great future." Which is true, right? If you stick with these guys who eventually are going to look for Mount Meru, symbolically speaking, you will have a great future, because these people represent what I call the Septentrio or the Septentrion, which is basically the Arctic North or beyond the Arctic North, or Hyperborea, which leads you to the Garden of Eden. Court Jester, hey, nice name. Welcome to my channel. All right, so he meets the little midget guys, and they knock him out. They give him something to make him go to sleep, and they figure out that his hand was hidden the whole time because it was made out of gold. So they take it off of him, but look at the shape of this little golden hand that he had. You would think it would be like that or something, but no. This is the shape of his hand. He's doing that with his little golden hand. So they take it off him. Let's zoom in again so you can just get a couple different angles to make sure that that's actually what Napoleon's hand was designed as a prop, purposefully, just real quick in the movie, okay? These are just little nuggets, little morsels that some of you will catch on to. Most of you, it'll just go down into your subconscious. One of these days, your subconscious collectively will be activated, flipped around, and become your conscious. You'll realize things that that were at the precipice, at the boundaries and borders of your minds all throughout your life, but now you realize are truths. Now, it's time for them to get out of here because they just stole all of Napoleon's stuff. There's a clock in the background, and if we look at the subtitles, it says that the clock is tolling, that it's reached the hour. But what hour? Let's take a look. If it's the apocalypse, I think we all should know what time it is, right? Midnight. Of course. That's when the doors open. That's when they can go, is midnight. It's always midnight. Cinderella, all the stories, it's always midnight. So little guys, they sneak past the big guys. The portal opens up. They always have this blue beam, by the way, also attached to the door itself, because the blue beam leads to the door up there in the heavens, or the wheel in the sky that keeps turning. So they all run through this door that opens up. Now, it doesn't really matter if it's sideways or whatnot. Technically, it should be above, but you know, the movies, they play with direction and perspective and stuff all of the time. So they all run through the doorway, which vanishes, and then they fall down into another world. This is seen in TV shows galore, Sliders and Quantum Leap. The guy has blue electricity every time he changes lives and stuff. Now they're in the Middle Ages. You can see the Pastafarian with his little hat over there. He says, "I don't understand. What's so special about that map?" Right? This map is what they keep following, which allows them to travel through time. So he asks, what's so special about it? Now it represents a real map. He says, well, here's the thing. We used to work for God. We created the trees and the shrubs. We helped to make all of this. Now, what he's telling you is we symbolically are something other than just little people, okay? Or midgets or whatever. That's not what they are. They represent a celestial, no, they represent a powerful entities, I'll say. Okay, I'll tell you who they are in just a second. He says, well, as a disciplinary measure, because they stole God's map and decided to go jump into these time holes or world holes and become robbers and thieves, we were sent down to the repairs department. They, whatever they represent, retracted or were sent down. They were on Earth making trees and shrubs and whatnot, but then they were disciplined and they were sent down into the earth, to the repairs department. All of the energy is being pulled and siphoned down into the heart of the earth. So because it's charging, not because it's disciplining itself or whatever, it's because it's a natural part of the process to pull energy in, to keep it for a time, and then to release it back to those on the surface. And that's where this comes in, the map. This is the only map of all the holes. There's many different holes. There's holes in reality, and they know where to find them because this map tells you where the holes are. And he says, why should we repair the holes? Why not just use them to get stinking rich? Now, sometimes they represent the what I call the Septon Trio. I'll go into that here in just a minute, okay? Sometimes they represent these 7 plasma volcanoes up in the Arctic Ocean that emit gases that ionize, and people see these 7 beams that encircle the throne of God. But other times, they represent the people who come from that area, the people who were kicked out, who became nomadic and took over the northern hemisphere and then slowly the rest of it, right? They represent certain family lineages like the Rothschilds or the Red Shield, which is the apex dome. And, J.P. Morgan, all these other families, right? They all harken back to Atlantis or Hyperborea or the Garden of Eden, right? So this is them saying, why not use this knowledge that we have from where we come from to get rich, to live the good life, right? Why should we be slaves? Why should we toil and work at the land when we can have others do that? Right? So they all take a picture together for the kid who has a little Polaroid camera, and they unroll their map. Now, if we count, there are 6 of them. Along with their newest member, the kid, they have 7. This represents, to me, the Septon Trio, which is the 7 trees, and they're the tree makers. Okay? Trio doesn't mean 3. It actually means trees. The reason that it implies trio as in 3 in the world we live in today is because there were 3 of these pillars that branched out at the top and looked like trees. Okay, 3 main ones, 3 of the largest ones: Anode, Cathode, and Mount Meru. And that's where trio comes from. It actually comes from the word tree, or the trees collectively. Now, we cut scenes and we go to Satan. Satan, right now, at this point in the movie, lives in Mount Meru. Mount Meru is the throne of God, and it gets exchanged. Okay, the power is exchanged every other cycle. During one cycle, it's Jesus rules the world, or Krishna, or Christ, or all these, savior types and God types that are benevolent and wise and helpful and give life to the world and heal people and things of this nature. Every other cycle, it's Satan and the devil and demons and whatnot. Even those 7, okay, they go from 7 bad to 7 good every other time. So he says, I am all powerful. He's basically Skeletor. He's, typical evil satanic person or whatever. Pasty white skin. Also, you'll take note of that. And these are his minions. Okay. And one of them steps up. This guy right here in the middle, he questions the devil. And he says, but why, if that's the case, that you're all powerful, are you unable to escape from this fortress? So he lives in some sort of a fortress, which I'll tell you right now is Mount Meru. He's actually trapped under Mount Meru in the necropolis of our world, in the underworld, in the extreme westernmost parts of this world. And he's stuck down there because it's electromagnetism, or it's magnetism in particular, that has turned back on and has kept that energy at bay, or trapped down inside of the world, okay? But he still lives in Mount Meru. There's no shining beam. There's no world filling with healing light or energy, right? This is us today, right? He says, why are you unable to escape? He dares to question, right, the devil. And his buddies all back away. They know why. Because the devil doesn't like questions, okay? Satan doesn't like the adversary of everything that is good and pure and wholesome, doesn't like questions, doesn't like people investigating for themselves. So one of his own minions steps up and asks a question, and he electrocutes the crap out of him and has him blow up into a million little pieces. And then he goes, that's a good question. Which this is like the funniest part in the whole movie. Before this, someone else dared to question him and he blew him up too without any real reason. And then this guy, he blows him up and then he like has an afterthought like, oh, that's actually a good question. So he starts talking about the guy's question. He says, why am I trapped in the fortress of ultimate darkness? Now, it's the fortress of darkness because Mount Meru, Rupus Nigra, is dark during the time where Satan rules. It is a black mountain, right? Because the world just filled up with all of this oxygen that comes from the earth. The earth releases all this oxygen and it ionizes, and it causes many things in this world to become rusty, basically. So the mountain itself becomes rusted over and becomes black with a type of rust, right? Some rust is orange, some is red, some's yellow, some's black, okay? This particular type on this mountain becomes black, okay? Just like your cast iron skillets and all that, they turn black, same concept. Mount Meru turns black, and it's known as Rupus Nigra, which is the black rock. Black rock, that's why that represents evil, right? Instead of good. You would think, well, but it's Mount Meru. But it's Rupus Nigra. It's the holy mountain. Yes, every other cycle, it's holy to those who are good. But every other cycle after that, it's holy to those who are evil. It's consecrated and dedicated to those who are evil, and it puts out the signal because it's an antenna to the rest of the world. That is not a good signal. So there's a fight back and forth for Mount Meru. Why am I trapped in this ultimate fortress of darkness? When I have the map, I will be free. Now, he wants the map, the true map, right? The map that shows everything, the map in its entirety. In the remake of this, which sucks, they don't even have midgets or anything, which is totally terrible. In the remake, there's a portion of the map that's missing. They need to find it. And the portion shows his little location, the legendary time is what they call that. And he needs the map in its entirety so that he can manipulate it, right? Just as our map has been manipulated over time. Time itself has been manipulated, has been changed over and over and over again. People are lost every which way from Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Saturday and all the other days. We are the lost boys. Okay, people are wandering around this world. They still don't even know what time it is, what day it is, what year it is, where we are in the grand cycle of things. People are lost. And the devil knows this. So he needs to get a hold of the map so that he can control the minds of the people. Now he says, and the world will be different because I have understanding of digital watches. Now, at first, you just kind of think it's funny. It's just a movie. It's just a joke. He has understanding of digital watches. Okay, I see. It's the devil. It doesn't make any sense. That's funny, I guess. But it's not, because it's true. The devil has understanding of digital watches, of timekeeping, of keeping track of the time and keeping time for himself or itself, of changing times and laws, as it says in the book of Daniel. Soon I shall have understanding of video cassette recorders and car telephones, cell phones, smartphones, computers, quantum computers. And when I have understanding of them, I shall have understanding of computers. And when I have understanding of computers, I shall be the supreme being. He shall sit in the throne of God and declare himself to be God. This is written in prophecy, in the Bible at the very least. I know this much. Okay? Like I said, we go through these energetic shifts back and forth. So, the supreme being, evil, is interested in technology so that it can rule the world. Does that sound familiar? The black cube. The black box. The black box is just a black container. It doesn't have to be a cube shape. However, they purposefully made it a cube shape because it has 6 different sides to it. The letter 6, or the number 6, was the letter and picture of the Vav, which was the tent peg, which was a beam of light that connected the earth to the apex dome above, the firmament, right? It was the ultimate tent dome, the tent of our world. It's the connector. And there was many of them. And there's actually 3 of them, like I said, the 3 brightest ones, and that equals 666. And when you see that, you will understand where Satan lives and the Antichrist and where the Antichrist is and what it is, as opposed to the life-giving light, right? There is an evil blue light that mimics the blue earth-giving light that comes up from below. There is a blue one that comes down from above, or Project Blue Beam. These are supercomputers. These are quantum computers, quantum level computing, right? God-like thinking, also represented by the hex, as you can see. And it says ion as well, which is amazing. These are different types of quantum computers. These things can think more than every human on Earth at the same time. Okay? They can come up with plans. They can predict ultimately. And meaning by predict, they can control. Those who have access or power or control over these things, they can use that knowledge to try to control the rest of us. Why? Because it's all electromagnetic. It's all algorithms. It's all ones and zeros on one hand. On the other hand, it's also not, okay? But to them, this is how they, being the people who are of the left-hand path, the insectoid brain, the computer brain, this is how they see it, okay? This is another black box that is treated like a god. Now, I wonder, and I just put this out there, I wonder, since there is nothing new under the sun, if these quantum computers existed in the times of Atlantis or before, and people remember this shape and associate it with divine thinking or power, and that they worship it, and that they erect its image all across the world. Time and time again as we go through cycle after cycle. He says God isn't interested in technology. He knows nothing of the potential of the microchip or the silicon revolution. The devil is very interested in technology, in feeding information through little pathways to manipulate other people's pathways to gain control, right? You see, whenever we live during the water world or the flooded after effects of the flood, the great flood, the deluge, when the world was flooded in its entirety, all of the energy, like I said, is slowly going down into the earth, and we lose that power. And so we, which really the earth through us, but we come up with technology, which is a medium. It's a third party, basically. We try to use it to create magic, to bring back the magic that we've lost, right? But in doing so, we have sacrificed our livelihood. We grow old, we grow tired, we become consumers. We have sacrificed our lives, and we have gained technology. Good job. The good news is it's not going to stay like that for long. The old ways are returning. And just on a serious note, nearly every prophecy I have gone over points in the direction of, because people ask me how to survive all the time. If you want to survive, return to the old ways. Return to the old research. Return to the old learnings and the old ways of life and reality. And that'll help you out, I believe. My revenge will be slow and unpleasant, says the devil. Now, his revenge is his changing the world to make it his creation, to make it after his image, or I'm just using the word his loosely, right? But to make it evil. The world, this will be a slow change, slow and unpleasant. It's like torture to many of us who have the seed of the tree of life welling up within us. It's a slow, torturous change. Now, the closer we get to the end times, that change will be faster and faster, as I know you're experiencing right now, today. I know this, okay? Many of you. Some of you don't notice, that's whatever, but I'm talking to the ones that do. And I will turn you inside out over a very long period of time, says the devil. Yes, we have been turned inside out. This world has become upside down. Everything that was once true is now considered a lie, and vice versa. Everything that was once good is now evil, and everything that is now evil is considered good. The devil takes control every other cycle, and that's why we live in the season of Satan, or Satan's little season. Now, we must bait the hook and see if they bite. So now the devil always baits the hook, puts something appetizing at the end of death and inevitable destruction for our very own kind. Put something on there, right? Like the robots, like the human robots that we do during our Omens episodes. Why are we making humanoid robots, right? Oh, but they can flip pancakes. That's the bait on the hook, okay? Look, this microchip in the brain can help the quadriplegic to play Mario Kart. That's the bait on the hook. Pay attention, or you're going to get hooked. Stand by for mind control, he says. Boom. Put the bait on the hook. Mind control. Literally controlling your mind. There are energies flying through the airwaves right now that have the ability to influence you. You think that you just make your own decisions, that you just, control your own life, that you're in control. However, you're constantly being influenced by energies that are invisible to you all around. The blessing in disguise is looking into this. It's called the esoteric. It's what's hidden from most people. It's the esoteric and the arcane. It's the undiscovered. It's the subconscious. It's the things that we have forgotten, or what I call ancient oblivion. And when you become aware of them, you can learn about them. And when you learn about them, you can apply these principles and this new reality or realization to your life, to protect yourself, to guard yourself, to empower yourself, to be stronger, to be healthier, to be better and faster and more intellectual, to be peaceful, to give instead of to take, to be loving, to give your life purpose, basically. Now, the head of God shows up once more in the foggy forest, as it should be, right? The foggy forest represents the depressurization. Return what you have stolen from me, he says, and he starts chasing after him. The protagonist runs, there's two doors that open up. So this is two pathways, right? This kind of reminds me of, the test where they shoot the proton or whatever it was, and like it can go one way or the other way, and he chooses one, right? What makes him choose that way? That's interesting. So he goes through the left door, and he ends up in the desert world. They're showing to you Earth. Okay. Now, technically in the movie, he's time traveling. This is just a region of Earth, and it just happens to look like that. But symbolically speaking, if we're looking at things through the lens of the plasma apocalypse, they're showing you the desert world where the waters have been removed. There was ocean there at some point in time, which is what helped to carve and to shape all of that, right? That's how hills are made. Like, how else is a hill made? You know what I mean? Millions of years and imagination, hills, boom. No, it's water that moved the land about in waves and stuff and made hills and stuff and left, carvings and different things like that, as well as electricity. It's nature that has made the earth. Okay. The earth has made the earth. But anyways, this is the desert world. This is the red planet. This is Mars, which is us in the future and once was in the past. And we have a fight that's happening between a minotaur and some sort of warrior. Now, if you look at the minotaur's head, there's a sigil. It's a circle with a cross right there in the middle, right? That's the Garden of Eden. That's where the Minotaur is. That's where the Minotaur lives, at the center of the labyrinth, which is the maze of this world. And the center of this world, right, is where the Minotaur typically is found, or within the labyrinth itself, I'll say, right? But you have to get to the labyrinth in order to even see the Minotaur or come across the Minotaur's path. The Minotaur in real life is not a guy that has the head of a bull. That's a cartoonification. Is it impossible to create that through technology or whatever? No, I'm sure they could and have made all kinds of horrendous, monstrous cross-contaminations of beasts and man and whatnot throughout time. I'm sure of that. But the quintessential Minotaur is what people saw in the heavens. It was the stick figure shooting up out of Mount Meru as a beam of plasma that branched out with his hands upwards and then had those horns on top, just like Janus does, how I showed you at the beginning. Okay, it was the bull-headed god or whatnot. So we're going to come back to the Minotaur in a bit too. So anyways, a portal opens up in the sky. The Nephilim-type kid falls down. He's a fractal-verse traveler. It doesn't necessarily mean evil. Okay, even the word Nephilim, I feel, has a bad rap. It means those who have come down. All right, the fallen ones. They fell down they literally fell down from the sky. Actually, fell down. Now, religion has twisted that into, they're just rejected by heaven or whatever. Okay, that's fine. I get that, and you can have that if you'd like, but that's not my perspective. My perspective is that they came down from above. What they do with their lives when they're here will dictate whether or not they are good or whether or not they are evil, not where they come from. That's like being racist. That's like saying, well, because of this color of your skin, you're good or you're evil. No, it is your actions that define your spirit, period, across time, across reality, always. Now, the guy that was fighting the Minotaur, he's basically saved because the kid distracts him and he's able to kill the Minotaur. He says, "Who sent you? The gods?" Right? The beings that come down from the sky. They want to know and incorporate and have it make sense according to whatever his reality is. There's Sean Connery, by the way. So they jump on the white horse. They take off together towards Clay City. And they zoom in on the city, or they zoom out, right? And they show you this entire city made of just clay and mud. Why? Why did so many ancient cities were built and made out of mud and clay? Well, that's just, that's all they could do. That's all. They weren't very intelligent back then. They couldn't figure it out. No, this was the main resource. The entire world just went through an apocalyptic shaking, and it will once more in the future, which means all the water will rise up through liquefaction. It'll mix with all of the sand and the debris and the soil and all this stuff, and the whole world will become swamp-like and muddy. And if you combine that with the depressurization of the atmosphere, then you lessen the density of all of that. And what you have is clay left over. So these people become mud people. And then they use that mud as it dries and they shape it, the clay of it, into houses and stuff. And they, make dwellings out of these things. And you can see this whenever they show you him riding in on the town and all the people are cheering and stuff. Look at the structures. Also, I just want to point this out too. These battle axes up here, okay? See that shape right? These are not weapons to use against humans, okay? All right. I was in the military, and I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. Some weapons, yes, are very obvious, like this could be used to easily fight and defend myself and hurt someone else in war when it matters or whatever. But some weapons like that big old thing, all heavy on one side or whatever, dude, you're not going to effectively do anything in war. These were used as sigils. This particular one, okay, they represented something else. They were sigils, basically. We walked around with, icons. Now, the kid's up there taking his Polaroids as he's time traveling. He's an ancient Troy, I think. This is the Trojan era. He's taking pictures of all the clay buildings and stuff, right? Remember, he was studying the book about this. And Agamemnon comes and sits down next to him. And the boy says, I never, ever want to go back. Agamemnon, trying to be a fatherly figure, says, "Are you sure? Not back to your friends?" He's like, "Nope. No thanks." "You don't want to be in your own home to be with your mother and your father?" He says, "No." With the dead serious look on his face, right? His mother and his father are lost. They're soulless, as I showed you in the very beginning, right? He doesn't feel like he has a real family. His friends are just acquaintances that he puts up with. But these types of people feel alone in the world. They feel at home in the ancient past. That's why people like us tend to study the ancient past and anomalies and strange things and the wonderful and aliens and monsters and time travel and things like this interest us because our soul resonates and remembers. We have what I call spirit memory. It's like a gnat flying around in my room right now. Now, they time travel again, okay? They end up on this gigantic boat of yesteryear. And one of the midgets comes up and he says, "Cheer up, Kevin. Kings aren't the only ones with money, Now, they don't have to be a king. Like I said, sometimes these guys represent the Rothschilds and the rich families from, that rule the world, right? The 13 major families. And they're dressed up just like those families. And he says, you don't have to be a king. The kings are pawns. All right. The presidents are pawns. Those are all puppets. And there's puppet masters that you don't even know who they are and what their names are. He says it's about the map. The map? I don't understand you, Randall. You've got something really brilliant like that, and you're just wasting it. So the kid sees that this guy can travel through time. He can go experience things. He can know the truth of history. And instead, they want to be robbers. They just want to be rich. They just want to make money off of other people. And he says, well, I wouldn't exactly call it wasting it, as he takes a sip of his alcohol. He's living it up. He's living the high life, right? From his knowledge of being from another place and another time. He says, listen, I was having a close look at the map last night. Do you know what I found? Og was right. Now, Og is one of these other little midget guys or whatever. He's actually represents a Titan. There's a Titan, a giant named Og. He was the king of all of them. And I've done many videos on Og, but basically Og represents that beam of energy at the center of the world, the blue beam, that looks like it's holding up a giant mountain, and it gets ready to squish the Holy Land with this gigantic mountain, which is the apex dome and a piece of the firmament, which is going to break off and fall down towards the Holy Land, or towards Hyperborea. The most fabulous object in the world. They found it on this map. It does exist. In the middle of the time of legends is a fortress of ultimate darkness. And inside the fortress of ultimate darkness, the most fabulous object in the world. He's talking about this place. Let's rewind just a minute. In the middle of the time of legends. This place is the time of legends, okay? This is Atlantis, this is Hyperborea, this is the Garden of Eden, and so on and so forth, the Hesperides and whatnot. This is the time of legends, okay? This is the ancient of days. This is the ancient of time. This is a place that is ancient, okay? This is the time, this is the place where legends are, and still are, and it's fantastic, okay? Everything's fantastic. In the middle of the time of legends is a fortress of ultimate darkness. So in the middle of this map is a dark rock, Rupus Nigra, as it says right here. Literally means darkness, a dark rock, right? And this is the most, inside of that is the most wonderful object in the whole world, the most valuable possession that they're all going to look for. Now, you know what the movie's about. Now we see, as this guy moves out of the way, that they're on the Titanic, which is also interesting because, like I said, these guys right here represent the Septon Trio. Okay, that's why there's 7 dwarves and Snow White, etc., and so on and so forth. These guys represent the 7 mountains that go around, right, acting as cathode mountains to the anode central, or Mount Meru, right? And they all emit their own light, which creates a sheath or an umbrella-like dome over the Garden of Eden, and all that energy meets in the mountain, in Mount Meru. And it comes to such a small toroidal point that a beam of energy shoots up and down out of it, right? This is called dense plasma focus. And we create machines after that technology in the world today. Anyways, let's continue on. So they represent the Septon Trio or the Septentrion. That also means that they're Titans. Okay, there's 7 original Titans basically. These are the 7 mountains, or sometimes people said that the Titans turned into rock or turned into the mountains, etc. And that's why they're on this ship. Okay. Also, it has to do with the location. So the Titanic obviously hits an iceberg, which means it's far to the north, and it goes down. The classic story that everyone knows or thinks that they know. There's a lot of conspiracy surrounding the whole sinking of the Titanic, and if that even was the Titanic. However, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. What I am going to focus on is their location, which is the North Atlantic. They're in the north. There's icebergs everywhere anyways. And he says, I want to go home. I can't stand it. And he says, you're going to get us all killed. The fog rolls in. Fog surrounds the island, by the way. Hyperborea, because there's a big difference between the heat that's coming up from the zephyr of the inner Earth and the coldness of the Arctic. It's also a difference in pressure between the inner Earth in that area and the surface world where we are, and therefore it creates a constant storm of fog all the way around the island, which hides it. He says, you're going to get us all killed. Now this guy becomes plasma possessed by the devil, who's like telling him what to say from afar, and he's calling him to Mount Meru. He wants them all to come so that he can get this map. He says, now is the time to start our quest, right? To find Mount Meru, basically. For the most fabulous object, Randall, now is the time to start our quest. And he's like, well, I've got the map. Let's go. Let's do it. And then the kid's like, that's a bad idea. We don't want to do this. Not a good idea. And then the water starts whirling around, a whirlpool. Or an indrawn sea, you could say. And they all start spinning around in this whirlpool, and they get sucked down under, way up north in the Arctic. When they go down into this whirlpool, I'll show you what happens. So the devil's making this all happen, okay? Which is really just electromagnetic current. And he says, bring them to the time of legends. The time of legends is the land of Atlantis. Okay, it goes by many names, but it's Atlantis. Now, this is an inverted view. If you're down under the water looking up at them, okay, in this whirlpool, you're now looking up at them drowning as they're sinking down towards you. So they're getting pulled under the Arctic Ocean, and they go down, 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 and they keep going so far that they come out of the Arctic Ocean underneath, where they just fall and they all land into another ocean, another water source at least, okay? This was also shown to us in the Pirates of the Caribbean. If you guys remember that, where they had like the green beam of light that shot up from the sunset or whatever, and they had to like flip the boat upside down. That's the same exact concept. They're showing you the ends of the earth, okay? They're showing you Atlantis under the water, right? Still protected. Why? Because water is repelled by a strong magnetic force. And if it's extremely strong of a magnetic force, it can work extremely well, meaning it can possibly hold back the waters of the ocean itself, protecting the entire island of Eden from the flood. So anyways, they fall through, they come into Eden's water area down there. And they're all floating around. They meet an ogre, basically. So this is the time of legends. An ogre is they just call him that after Og, basically. Any giant was an ogre, or one of Og's family, basically. It's been twisted and warped. There's different types and classifications of giants over time. Now, the boat starts to rise up into the air, and they find out it's because there is a titan. There's a huge giant underneath, and he's just walking up out of the ocean, happens to have the boat sitting on top of his head, right? So this big, huge giant comes up out of the ocean, and he goes over, he stamps his foot on this house, crushes those people, and then he falls asleep. They put some sleeping powder into his brain, and he falls asleep. This is the sleeping giants. In the book of Revelation, it talks about this beast, or a beast type system, mountains, it specifically calls them, that come up out of the ocean. Okay, Atlantis is going to rise again. It's going to come up out of the ocean. The Septentrio are going to rise as well. And the sleeping giants, these are all volcanoes. Okay, that's what volcanoes are. They're sleeping giants. As a matter of fact, oftentimes they're called that. They're referred to as sleeping monsters, sleeping giants, sacred fires, etc. So when the volcano is not active, then they say it sleeps, much like Cthulhu and whatnot, right? Whenever it starts to erupt, then the sleeping giant is waking up, all right? So there are 7 sleeping giants in the north. Those are the Septentrio, and they will one day rise up out of the ocean water, and they will erupt, and you will see lights in the north, and it's the whole book of Revelation come to life, all the way up until the apocalypse. Now, they're in this land that's just outside of Hyperborea, or the Garden of Eden, symbolically speaking, which is always going to be the desert world or the Arctic Ocean. Every other cycle, it's one or the other, because this cycle, we've got the oceans. The next cycle, the atmosphere depressurizes, buoyancy increases, the waters float straight up into the sky, and they're swallowed by Kronos. The fortress of ultimate darkness is somewhere over there. And he says, you're joking, Randall. There's nothing over there. We can't see it. That's because it's always hidden. This is a hidden island. It's a phantom island. There's different conditions that can hide it, but like I said, fog is one of those main conditions. But he says, look, we're so close. Can't we just give up? And they keep on walking. He says, it's a bit further. Boom! They smack right into an invisible barrier, much like glass, like it's made out of glass or something, right? But it's not glass, because if it was glass, they'd see right through it. And they don't see through it. They just see forever. Like they reach the end, the boundary of the video game or something. They smash right into this invisible barrier. They're touching it. They're trying to figure out how this is possible. He says it's some kind of invisible barrier. The fortress of ultimate darkness has a barrier around it, which is Atlantis. Okay? It has an energetic barrier. It has a force field, or a field that can force you away from it. Why? Because you're made of energy. And that energetic field can repel people or allow people based on your energy, essentially, to allow you in or to keep you from getting in. It's very easy. You try to go any further into that electromagnetic barrier, you won't. You'll physically not be able to go. And if you try to go, your spirit will stay behind as your body goes forward, and that means you're dead. Or you lose consciousness at the very least. He says, we've made it, lads. We're here. We're here. And they're like, no, there's nothing here. So he throws this skull, and it smashes right into that barrier, and the glass breaks into pieces. It shatters. This is also symbolic of the dome itself, the firmament breaking open and shattering, which leads us into an apocalypse, another age. But beyond this electromagnetic barrier, they find this, which is this dark castle. We found it. And he takes the map. He says, thank you. He knew it was there the whole time because the map says it was there. So they walk past all the shattered parts and they look up and they just behold a dark, black tower rising what seems like forever into the sky. Now, if you sort of squint your eyes a little bit, it almost resembles basalt columns. I feel this is done purposefully because that's what it is. That's what Mount Meru is made out of. Is basalt columns, which is the metals that are inside of the earth, the magnetic ones that are most attracted to the beam that shoots up, right? They all that mud and muck and stuff that has all these liquid form metals, it goes to the middle, rises up, and when it gets too close to that beam, it petrifies, it solidifies, it densifies, and it just keeps on stacking up and up and up, and it takes these tile forms, right? These tile shapes at the tops, at the very least, right? If you look at all, these basalt pillars and columns, they usually look like hexes. They look like tiles, right? And the reason is because they were once liquid form, but they were put into shape through cymatics. They were put into shape through the electromagnetics that were running through them before they petrified or before they turned into solid rock. Now, they go into Mount Meru, symbolically speaking. They go into the Cave of Wonders. They say it's magnificent. This is where the treasure of the treasures is. This is where the light of the world is. And what do they get to? A labyrinth. At least like a top-down labyrinth. They're like at the top of the labyrinth right now, right? That's actually them right over here. They're trying to get over here where all the lights are, okay? Now, why do they have to always go through a labyrinth in all of these different situations before they can get to the journey's end, before they can get to the middle, or, rescue the prince or the princess or the baby or whatever it may be, find the treasure? Why is there always a labyrinth? Like I said, this island right here is made by the earth. It's made by electromagnetism. There is an entire mountain range that goes all the way around this island. Where do those mountains come from? Electricity. Like I said, there's a plasma sheet that wraps all the way around it in a dome. And the earth lifts up around the edges in those places, and they have their own little basalt columns. These are the cliffs of insanity. But it's not just one wall that goes all the way around the edge. It's many walls. It's very thick all the way around. It's probably miles and miles of just huge walls lifting straight up into the sky. And this is what you need to traverse and get past before you can get into Eden, unless you know the secret ways, which there are. Now he meets this game show host who's dressed all in blue. Typically that would symbolize the blue beam. However, like I said, there's an antichrist that takes on the appearance of the Christ energy, which is blue. This guy right here represents the Antichrist, which is the sunlight that heats up and starts baking and burning the earth, and it travels to the Arctic, right? It transgresses the northern tropic. He says, here they are, the winners of the most fabulous object in the world, which is the blue beam. Now, they have to run all the way through that labyrinth, and the kid knows better. He says, come back, it's a trap. Now, let me explain what's happening in real time in real life, or what will happen in real time in our world, okay? There is a calling to Mount Meru, right? Many people are already picking up on it. And it is the devil's calling right now at the moment. So if you feel this, you feel compelled to go to Mount Meru right now, my advice to you personally is don't. You need to wait. You will know when it's time to go. Not when you have the feeling to go or the urge to go, but when you see the sign that says it's time to come, which is the light of the world. When you see that, then you can go. All right. But if you go beforehand, there's going to be a different light. It is the Antichrist. It is the abomination that makes everything desolate or destroys the earth. Okay. All these enemies, all these bad guys, all these armies will flock to the Arctic. They will all come in. All the armies of the world are going to come together, fighting over land or whatever it is they think they're fighting over. Some might know about Eden, some might not. You know what I mean? But it doesn't matter. They're all going to come together in the Arctic. And then all at once, they're going to be eradicated. They're going to be burnt to a crisp by a heavenly light that comes downwards from above in a blue, hot laser, basically. And the wise know to wait until that event takes place, until all the dead are done with, and then we can just walk past the necropolis and, into paradise. It says, fabulous, here they are, congratulations. There's the pyramid steps too, by the way. Now, it's nice for them to be here tonight. That's the kid's mom and dad, by the way. The map, please. Now, this game show host wants the map, right? Remember, the devil wants the map so he can change reality. He can change the world or change your perception of the world that we live in so you can't escape. He doesn't want you to escape. He wants you to be a slave. He wants the charge. He wants your charge, right? I have the map. And he takes off. So the devil stole the map. He tricked him. And he says, and the day after tomorrow, the world. So when will the apocalypse happen? The day after tomorrow. This is the mindset you should always have, okay? All the people that ask me, hey, Jay, when do you think the apocalypse is coming, huh? Hey, I'm new to your channel. When's it going to happen? Hey, Jay, just tell me this. When's the apocalypse? When do you think it's going to happen? This is my answer forever and always, okay? This will be my answer tomorrow. This will be my answer the day after tomorrow, forever, until it comes. Because this is the mindset that you should have if you would like to survive, okay? Anyone that's telling you a specific time, a specific date, a year, they're guessers, okay? It's impossible. Nobody can know when the world is going to end. We can see the signs that it's on the way, that it's near, but you can't know when it's coming, exactly when it's coming, okay? You can get close-ish based on the omens, okay? You might know that the time of year that it's likely to occur, like the season that it's likely to occur in, like the solstices, which is my belief, right? But you can't know which solstice. You can't know when it's going to actually happen, on what year it's going to fall. You definitely can't know the month, and you definitely can't know the day. Or I don't know. You definitely can't know the year. I'll leave it at that, okay? But the day after tomorrow is the mindset that you should have. That way you're always prepared. If you really thought that the apocalypse was coming the day after tomorrow, you'd be changing your life today. So that's the answer I'm giving you. Now, they're all locked up in these 3 different cages, suspended in the air, just kind of floating above the bottomless pit. In reality, you can actually float in Mount Meru. There's a Zephyr. The pressure is different. Quote unquote, gravity acts differently there. Okay, there really isn't gravity. It's just the opposite of buoyancy. It's the same thing. Okay. And they need to escape. Now, they lost their map, but he says, look, I took a picture. And in the picture is the map. He says, look closer on the map. It says the time of legends. And he says, see the fortress of ultimate darkness? And he's like, that's a hole. So they realize that there's this warp zone. There's a portal in the fortress of ultimate darkness where they now are. And he says it could lead almost anywhere, everywhere. It does lead everywhere. It leads into the fractal verse, which has multiple Earths or versions of this world, right? Copied and pasted across the fractal verse is how I call that. And the codes are all repetitious. It's all repeating over and over. It's just different outcomes. And he says, we just found the biggest hole in the universe, which by the universe in the old world is our world. Okay. That's this is our universe. There's many different universes. They're all just little worlds out there. And then there's the greater scheme of things as well. Okay. He says it's practically below our feet. It's because it is below their feet. They're hanging above the bottomless pit right now, as it's described in the book of Revelation, right? There is a bottomless pit that goes all the way through the earth and down into the underworld, which is the whole other world below our feet, okay? That's one of the portals. That's the rabbit hole that Alice falls down into, and she doesn't even get hurt. Bill and Ted also took that same never-ending hole or whatever down into hell, which is much different than how it's portrayed in the modern world. No lesser work than the overthrowing of creation itself. So the devil wants to overthrow the creation, which means he wants to destroy everything, basically. Or it appears that way. We will remake man in our image, not his, right? Not in God's image. Not in the image of a benevolent, giving creator, but in a destructive form. Mankind is being reshaped right now into the form of destruction, into the form of taking energy away from others. Energy vampires is what mankind is changing into. They're changing mankind into technology that can be controlled, manipulated, commanded, programmed, and told what to do. Changing your free will. You're not in control when you're programmed. Okay? When you're connected to a computer, you are a computer. And you will obey your input, your commands that you're given. We will turn the mountains into sea. Right? This is a part of the apocalypse that happens. Right? The mountains are going to dissolve. They'll melt. I mean, the volcanoes will go off and stuff, but they'll melt in that they'll fall apart. They'll dissipate because of the shaking of the earth. And the fire into a mighty rushing wind which will cover the face of the earth. This is the plasma apocalypse, okay? The fire is plasma. Now, one of the little midget guys tries to grab the map and run away, so the devil, ching, opens up one of his fingers, zaps him, and he changes into a pig person. Therianthropy. When humans change into animals. Not the reverse. Not evolution. Not we came from apes and pigs and whatever. But we change into those depending on the lifestyle that we now live. In the DNA that we put into our bodies right now. There will be so much radiation in the world to come that it will... Now, keep in mind, much of this radiation is benevolent. It's trying to fix things, okay? So the radioactive areas of the world to come are not radioactive as they are today, as in radioactive decay. They're, I don't know, I can't remember what the opposite of radioactive decay is, but it's beneficial. It's life-giving, okay? That radioactive energy, the plasma that comes up out of the earth, seeks to make sense of chaos. It seems to put the pieces back together. So what do you think it's going to do whenever you're walking around with pig DNA in your gut? Or bugs, or whatever people are eating and putting into their bodies? People will mutate. People will change. Not everybody, but many people are going to start changing as mutations start to occur as the radioactive energy comes up out of this world once more. And there is historic records of pig people existing. Okay, just as much as there are dog-headed tribes of humans, there's also pig-headed people on record. Okay, not myth, not, oh, that's just an old wives' tale. Actual historic records that people witnessed, saw, interacted with, tried to marry, and so on and so forth. Pig people, real ones, all right, or at least people that looked like pigs. Okay, that doesn't mean that they were actually pigs, but then again, there's a case to be made for that. All right, now all the little people have gone through their time warp to try to get some help, leaving the pig-headed midget and the kid to fight Satan. Now, here, this scene is of note. We have all of these pillars, okay? All these pillars shooting up. In Islam, this was called Iram of the Pillars. It was basically like Islam's version of Atlantis. All right, it's called Iram of the Pillars. It was a place where all these pillars and poles would shoot up into the sky, which is the Septentrion at the North Pole. Then we also have the black and white checkerboard, chessboard, imagery off to the side over here. This represents fractal-verse travelers and space, etc. You can see the crack that's opening up in the heavens above. Let's continue. Now, he takes the map and he's threatening Satan and he says, call off those creatures or I'll destroy the map forever. So he tells Satan, I want you to destroy your own army or I'm going to destroy the map. And he holds it up to the fire. And you can see they're surrounded, right? The kid's surrounded by the army of Satan. And he says, very well, I have no need of them. Your time has come. And he bam, blows up every single one of his minions. He's the only one left. They all catch fire. He says, I'm a reasonable man. Just give me the map. This is what I was talking about when I said all the armies of the world are going to come together and surround the camp of the saints, and that they'll all be destroyed by heavenly fire. Satan, right? The evil version, the blue light that comes down that will just bake everything. It's going to destroy all of its own that follow it, the sun worshippers, right? Now, the knights come in. These people are dressed like this so that they can battle electricity, which is what this guy is, okay? It's not a human. He's not a demon in the flesh or any of that stuff. He's symbolically, right? We project ourselves onto things we don't understand. It's called personification. So there's a personified version of evil itself in flesh. We do that with good and we do that with evil. So these guys come in wearing basically Faraday cages and bringing lightning rods and stuff as these lances and stuff, which is what they were originally for. And they come in to fight the devil inside of Cycro's cave, or the cave of Zeus, or the cave of power and energy. The knights come in fully armored, I mean, you can't, I've told you guys a million times, it's unreasonable to fight in that kind of getup, okay? You'll get whooped. I'm not saying that they didn't occasionally fight or attempt to, or fight one another for sport. Yes, but originally these were the outfits of explorers who went into places of power that were electrically amplified so that they would keep from getting zapped and electrocuted to death. So the knights come in, they try to fight against Satan, but Satan puts on a gas mask. And next thing you know, he releases all of these toxic gases, and the knights go right into them and they start coughing and stuff. So that stuff's not going to protect you from gas, right? You have to imagine when you're deep inside of the earth, you're going to experience all sorts of gases. The earth creates gases. All the stuff that we have up here on the surface comes from within the earth. And there's poisonous gases just as much as there are life-giving ones, okay? You would do well to learn them and to know how to recognize them, or to recognize the symptoms of breathing them in or having them touch your skin or whatnot. Which ones are beneficial, which ones are neutral, and which ones are malevolent against you. Now, one of the midgets has a tank, and he can't control it. The devil's starting to control it. He's like, I can't control it, and the devil's using it to fight the other ones, right? He says, of course you can't, you silly little man. I control them. So he's controlling the tank, which is the electromagnetics of the tank, and this little futuristic jet deal that the other midget has. It's the devil possessing our mechanical objects, robots, kitchenware, toasters, whatever. Everything's going to come to life, or seem to come to life. It'll have a life of its own. It'll not listen to you, okay? It's going to listen to this, because all of the electricity in the air will cause it to just turn on, and it will do whatever it wants to do, or whatever it's programmed to do or designed to do, without your permission and without your guidance, right? This has happened before. It's going to happen again. So all the machines turn on. Satan is controlling all of the machines. The robot war begins, basically. And then he makes his final finishing move. He's starting to get ready to kill everybody. But he turns into rock all of a sudden. Anticlimactically turns into rock, a statue, all of a sudden, just zapped. And then all of a sudden, the floating head of God in the cloud shows up. And it comes in, and we see this is God. He's this old Englishman. He says, right, well, we'll sort him out first, and he takes care of the guy who turned into a pig. He has the power to fix that, and he goes from a pig to a human, right? So cyclical, right? So the guy fixes him. He says, one thing I can't stand is a mess. This is the janitor god, like I said, right? Where this is the closet of the world that they are having this battle in. He wants it all picked up. He wants it all fixed up. Right? So the opening in the sky, the depressurization of our atmosphere through the firmament cracking open, makes a mess of this world. All right? There's a world storm that just blows everything all around. There's rubble and garbage and junk and debris all over the place. Right? Huge piles of sand that we call sand dunes, and all kinds of stuff just left over. And the janitor god wants it all picked up. We are commissioned to tend the land, to fix it back up again. I want all this stuff picked up. And now the midget is starting to apologize for stealing his map. And he says, we didn't mean to steal the map. We didn't mean to run away. And he says, what do you mean? You didn't mean to steal the map. Of course you didn't mean to steal it. I gave it to you. So it's simple, but it's also profound. The things that we think that we're doing, you know, the bad choices or whatever, to an omniscient being, an omnipotent or omnipotent being, and a being that is everywhere, all over the place, all at one time, all knowing everything, you can't hide from that. You can't go against that, right? That would mean that it's not all powerful. God knew the whole time. Everything, as it says in the Bible, is working together for good. It goes on to say, for those who love God. I'm just paraphrasing, but my point is God already knows. All right? And he says, now the kid asks, why do we have to have evil? Why do all these people have to die? Why do there have to be evil? So God says, I think it's got something to do with free will. And it does. Because if there wasn't evil, then everything would just be automatically, by default, good. Which means you wouldn't be good on your own. You'd just be a robot designed to be good. You'd have no choice in the matter whatsoever. So evil needed to be introduced so that there could be a choice, so that you could have free will to choose to be good instead of being programmed to be good. You see, this one is the opposite of the technology mindset. Freight train, good to see you. Mahalo, freight train. All right, so God takes off. He takes the midgets with him. They take off in a cloud of smoke, and then all this poison. There's one piece of evil from that statue that they left behind, and it starts flooding the world with these poisonous gases. And he starts choking. He's like, hey, don't leave me. Oh my God, help, help. And he starts coughing, and he's like, don't leave, don't leave. And then we realize he's in his bedroom. It was all a dream. And it was just the smoke of his house on fire. So the firefighter comes in and rescues him. Meanwhile, while their child is being pulled out of a burning house by the firefighter, his parents are arguing about which appliance they should save. Don't be a fool, Diane. She says, I'm going in for the toaster. Not I'm going in for my son, but for the toaster. So, his parents care more about technology than they do him. The Bible has a prophecy that talks about how during the end times, people would be lovers of themselves. They would be lovers of money and greedy, basically. That, there would be a separation in families between parents and children, brothers and sisters, right? And this separation is this energy in the world today, what people crave, what they want, right? If they will have peace and they're giving and they're loving, then they will be at odds with those that are selfish and energy vampires and base, right? It just creates a natural separation in this time when energy is amplifying in the world today, and therefore our spirits are amplifying the evils and the goods. So she's like, oh no, my super deluxe delight. Oh no. The firefighter turns out to be Sean Connery. Now you think this is going to be a Wizard of Oz moment when he's like, oh, it's all these people that he just knew. It's all the stuff that was in his room. It's just all in his subconscious. It's the brain firing off randomly, creating dreams that make no sense and are not at all messages to us. She says to her husband, if you'd been half the man, you'd have gone in there after the blender. They're not even asking the kid if he's okay. But then he takes out his Polaroids of real pictures where he's got proof for himself. It's not a dream. It's real. All of it is real. They'll try to convince you it's just a fantasy. They'll try to convince you you're just fantasizing. You're just dreaming. All this stuff about Mount Meru and the plasma volcano at the center of the world and a firmament and a dome over the world. You guys are just pretending, if anything. That's the nice way that they usually would say it. Otherwise, they would call you crazy. But we've got proof. We've got our own evidence, and we don't need it for anyone else. It's our own proof. It's our own evidence. Our minds are blown by it. We don't have to go knock on anyone's door and tell them the good news. Look at my Polaroids. I've got proof. That's for you. That's your proof. So he's got all this proof that he went on these adventures, that these fantasy places are real. The mom and dad open up the microwave and all that evil smoke starts pouring out. And they're like, oh, well, what do you call this? This is what started the fire. It's this rock, black rock, right? It's got all this poisonous gases coming out of it. And he's like, oh my God, it's evil. Don't touch it. Now he knows that the appliances are evil. He knows the technology is evil. He knows that there's a rock inside of it that is evil, represents evil, and it's in the appropriate place. He tells them don't touch it. So what do? They touch it, and they explode. They explode, and they're gone, leaving only the number 19, by the way. If you look back at the door, you can see that they have the number 19 on the door. Can you see that? Why is that significant? Well, because the number of the fallen angels in the book of Enoch, at least, numbers 19. The leaders of the fallen angels were 19 in number in the book of Enoch. There's also 19 tributaries to those 4 rivers that split into 19 different smaller rivers that go all the way around Hyperborea. Now, Sean Connery knows, right? He has some sort of knowledge that this is all real, so he gives a wink, which is the one eye. The one eye is not evil. It just means things are about to change. Okay, that's the secret. When you wink at someone, you're telling them things are about to change, because the one eye is the eye in the sky. And when you see the eye in the sky, or the great winking of the sky god, things are about to change. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. It all depends on you and your perspective and your energy. Now they zoom out, they show the map that they were all following, and God rolls it up. Just as it's written in the book of Revelation, that the heavens receded like a scroll. And that is our movie for today, Time Bandits. I hope that you guys enjoyed this presentation. I hope that you found some value and something of meaning, even if it's just a little breadcrumb to help you out on your path. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
Who